Joseph pushed the door open without knocking. He thought it was the HR office. He was wrong. For one sharp second, the room felt too quiet, like even the air was holding its breath. It was not a busy office with chairs and files. It was a wide executive suite with a thick carpet, a glass table, and a wall-sized window looking down at Lagos traffic crawling like slow ants. Far below, you could see the third mainland bridge stretching across the water. Inside, everything looked expensive and cold, and right in front of Joseph, a man was slumped in a leather chair. Not sleeping, slumped. His head leaned to one side, his lips were slightly open. One hand hung off the armrest like it had given up. Joseph's brain tried to deny what his eyes were seeing. Then he saw the woman, Benita. She stood near a small side table with a tray, and her blazer was perfect. Her face was calm, almost gentle, like she was helping someone. But her hand was not gentle. It hovered over a clear cup. Water, maybe, but Joseph noticed something strange. A small bottle, no label, just plain glass. Benita tipped it. 1, 2, 3 drops fell into the cup. Joseph froze in the doorway. Benita turned her head slowly, like she already knew somebody would enter. Her eyes met Joseph's eyes. For a second, neither of them moved. Then Benita smiled, not a happy smile, a warning smile. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice soft like velvet. Joseph's tongue stuck to the roof of his mouth. He tried to speak, and only air came out at first. I'm here for the interview," he managed. "Human resources." Benita nodded like she had heard that before, like she had prepared for it. "You're early," she said. Joseph swallowed. His palms were sweating. His heart was beating too hard for his chest. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I'm looking for the HR office. I thought this was—" "It isn't," she cut in, still calm. Then she picked up the cup. Joseph's eyes locked on it. He couldn't stop staring. His mind was screaming, "That is not just water." In the chair, the man made a small sound, a weak, rough breath. Benita stepped closer to him. Joseph blurted, "Is he okay?" Benita didn't answer. She brought the cup near the man's mouth as if she was helping him drink. Joseph took a step forward without thinking. "Ma," he said, voice shaking now, "what are you giving him?" Benita's smile disappeared. Her eyes became sharp, hard. "You should leave," she said. Joseph stopped walking. His feet felt stuck to the carpet. On the desk behind the chair, Joseph spotted a nameplate. Joseph Fada, Group CEO. His stomach dropped. This wasn't just any man. This was the Joseph Fada, the billionaire CEO. The one whose face was on business magazines at every bus stop. The one people pointed at on TV and said, "That man owns half of Lagos." And he was slumped like a broken doll. Joseph's mind flashed to his mother that morning in their small room in Mushin, tying her headscarf with tired hands. "This interview is your door," she had said. "Walk through it, my son. Don't come back defeated." Joseph had promised her. Now he was standing in the wrong door, watching something that felt evil. Benita leaned down again, trying to make Fada drink. Joseph's voice came out louder than he planned. "Sir," he shouted, "sir, can you hear me?" Benita snapped her head toward him. "What did you just do?" she hissed. Joseph didn't answer. He rushed forward. Benita stepped in front of him, blocking him with her body. She was not tall, but her presence was heavy. "You don't know what you're walking into," she said, her voice low. Joseph looked around quickly. He noticed tiny things people usually miss. The door latch was turned, like it had been locked from the inside. A pen on the floor, broken. A faint smell, bitter, like chemicals. And the CEO's phone on the desk, screen lit up with a message preview. "Richard. Finish it. The board meeting is in 40 minutes. Joseph's eyes widened. Richard. He knew that name. Everybody in Fada Group knew that name. Richard was the COO, the second most powerful man in the company, and that message sounded like an order. Benita saw Joseph staring at the phone. In one fast move, she snatched it and turned the screen face down. Joseph backed up half a step, breathing fast. "I'm not trying to cause trouble," he said, voice cracking, "but he doesn't look fine. He looks like he needs help." Benita took one slow step toward Joseph. You came for a job, she said quietly. Jobs are hard to find, right? Joseph frowned. She was talking like she knew his life. Benita continued, You don't want to lose this chance. You don't want to make enemies. So do the smart thing. And forget what you saw. Joseph's throat tightened. His mind raced. He thought of months of rejection, the polite emails, the silence, the transport money his mother borrowed just so he could print CVs. The hunger he pretended not to feel. Then he looked at Joseph Fada again. The CEO's chest rose, barely. Another rough breath. Then his head tilted farther. I'd like his neck couldn't hold it anymore. Joseph moved without deciding. He shoved past Benita and grabbed the cup from her hand. Benita gasped. Her calm mask finally cracked. Are you mad? She snapped. Joseph's hand shook as he held the cup away. The liquid inside looked normal, but his gut screamed, this is a lie inside a clear cup. He dropped it onto the carpet. The cup spilled. Benita's eyes turned wild. You've ruined everything, she whispered. Then she reached into her blazer. Joseph didn't even see what she pulled out at first. Metal flashed, a small syringe, sharp tip. Benita lunged toward him. Joseph stumbled back, tripping on the thick carpet. He hit the wall with his shoulder. Benita raised the syringe. And at that same moment, the CEO's body jerked, and he began to convulse in the chair like something inside him had snapped. Benita didn't even look at him. Her eyes stayed on Joseph. Last warning, she said through her teeth, stepping closer. Scream, and you'll be the one they blame. Joseph's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Because the panic was too big. Because the security camera in the corner was blinking red. Because the CEO was shaking like he was dying. And because Joseph suddenly realized something even worse, Benita wasn't scared of getting caught. She looked prepared to finish the CEO, prepared to destroy Joseph, right there, in that room. The door handle turned again, slow, careful. Benita froze with the syringe still raised in her hand. For half a second, nobody moved. Not Benita, not Joseph, not even the billionaire CEO shaking in the chair. Then Benita's face changed. Fast. She slipped the syringe back into her blazer like it had never existed and stepped away from Joseph in one smooth motion. Her calm returned so quickly it almost scared him more. She whispered through her teeth, You say one wrong word and you'll regret being born. The door opened. 2 men stepped in. Security. Big men in dark uniforms with earpieces and serious faces. One of them was Donald, the head of executive security. Joseph recognized him instantly. Everyone who entered Fada Group Holdings had seen Donald at least once. Donald's eyes went straight to the CEO. Sir, he said sharply. The CEO convulsed again, harder this time. Foam gathered at the corner of his mouth. Donald rushed forward. Call medical, he shouted into his radio. Benita gasped loudly, putting a hand to her mouth like a shocked family member. Oh my God, she cried. He just collapsed. I was trying to help him. Joseph stared at her. The acting was perfect. Too perfect. One of the guards noticed Joseph standing by the wall, pale and shaking. Who is this? The guard asked. Benita turned quickly. He's a job applicant. He walked in by mistake. I was just about to send him out. Donald looked at Joseph. Is that true? Joseph opened his mouth. Benita's eyes locked onto his. They were warning him again. Joseph swallowed. Yes, he said slowly. I came for an interview. Donald nodded. Take him outside. As the guard moved toward him, Joseph's chest burned with fear and anger. He had just watched a man get poisoned. If he walked out now, the truth would die in that room. Joseph stepped forward instead. She's lying, he said. The room went silent. Donald turned sharply. What did you say? Joseph's voice shook, but he forced the words out. She put something in his drink. I saw it. Benita spun toward him. That's a lie, she snapped. He's confused. He panicked. Joseph pointed at the spilled cup soaking into the carpet. Check it. Donald looked down. His jaw tightened. Secure the room, Donald said. The guards moved fast. One blocked the door. Another stepped toward Benita. Benita's calm cracked just a little. Donald, she said softly, you know me. I've worked here for years. You think I would do this? Donald didn't answer. The CEO's body suddenly went still. Too still. A terrible stillness. Joseph's breath caught in his throat. "Sir?" Donald said again, louder now. No response. Medical staff burst into the room moments later. Machines beeped. Orders were shouted. The CEO was lifted onto a stretcher. As they rushed him out, one thing became clear. If Joseph had not walked in, Joseph didn't finish the thought. Donald turned back to the room. He looked at Benita, then at Joseph. "You," he said to Joseph, "you're not going anywhere." Joseph nodded. His knees felt weak. Benita crossed her arms, trying to look offended instead of afraid. "This is ridiculous," she said. "I demand to speak to Richard." Donald's eyes flickered. Richard. The COO. The name hung in the air like smoke. Minutes later, the executive boardroom was sealed. Phones were taken, statements were recorded. Joseph sat alone in a small conference room with a glass wall. He could see shadows moving outside, hear voices through the thick doors. His heart was still racing. This morning, he had been worried about bus fare, and now he was part of something huge. A senior staff member entered the room. She introduced herself as a legal officer. "We need your full name," she said gently. "Joseph," he replied. "Joseph Adebayo." She paused slightly as she wrote it down. "Your father's name?" she asked. Joseph hesitated. "Samuel Adebayo." Her pen stopped. Just for a second. Then she looked up at him. "Did your father ever apply to work at Fada Group Holdings?" she asked quietly. Joseph blinked. "How do you know my father?" She didn't answer right away. Outside the glass wall, Joseph saw a familiar figure walking down the corridor. Tall, broad shoulders, expensive suit. Richard, the COO himself. Richard stopped, looked into the conference room, and locked eyes with Joseph. There was no shock in his face, no confusion, only recognition, and something darker. Like he had just seen a ghost from a past he thought was buried. Richard did not enter the room right away. He stood outside the glass wall, speaking quietly to Donald, the head of security. His face stayed calm, but his jaw was tight. Too tight, like someone holding back anger. Joseph watched him from the chair, hands folded together so no one would see them shaking. A few minutes later, the door opened. Richard walked in alone. Up close, he looked even bigger, taller than Joseph, strong build, the kind of man people moved out of the way for without being told. His suit was dark blue, perfectly pressed. Not a single wrinkle. Richard closed the door behind him. The click sounded loud. Joseph felt smaller. "I hear you caused quite a scene today," Richard said. His voice was smooth, controlled, friendly even. Joseph swallowed. "I just told the truth." Richard smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Truth," he repeated. "That's a heavy word." He pulled out a chair and sat across from Joseph, crossing his legs slowly. "You came here for a job," Richard said, "and suddenly you're accusing one of our top executives of murder." Joseph looked down at his hands. "I saw what I saw." Richard leaned forward. "Do you know how dangerous false stories can be?" Joseph looked up. "It's not false." Richard studied him for a long moment. Then he asked very calmly, "Your father, Samuel Adebayo, where is he now?" Joseph's chest tightened. "He's dead," Joseph said quietly. "He died 6 years ago." Richard nodded once, like he already knew. "I met your father," Richard said. Joseph's head snapped up. "You did?" "Yes," Richard replied, "years ago." "He came begging for work." Joseph's face burned. "He wasn't begging." Richard waved a hand. "He wanted opportunity. Same thing." Joseph clenched his fists. He remembered his father coming home late at night, shoulders slumped, shoes worn down. He remembered the rejection letters, the silence. "What does my father have to do with today?" Joseph asked. Richard smiled again. "Everything." Joseph's heart skipped. Richard stood up and walked toward the glass wall, his back to Joseph. "Your father applied for a senior technical role," Richard said. "He was smart, very smart, but he didn't fit." "Fit what?" Joseph asked. Richard turned slowly. The image. Joseph's stomach twisted. "We were building a powerful brand," Richard continued. "We needed people who looked the part, sounded the part. Your father didn't. Joseph's voice broke. So you rejected him because he was poor? Richard didn't deny it. That rejection ruined him, Joseph said. His throat burned. He never recovered. Richard's eyes hardened. Life ruins people every day. That's not my fault. Joseph stood up suddenly. Then this, he pointed toward the hallway where doctors and guards still moved fast. This is your fault too. Richard stepped closer. Careful, he warned. Joseph didn't sit back down. You and Benita planned this, Joseph said. I saw the message on the CEO's phone. You told her to finish it. Richard stared at him. For a long second, Joseph thought he would deny it. Instead, Richard laughed softly. You really think the board will believe a jobless boy over me? Richard asked. I built this company. I ran it. Father just enjoyed the spotlight. Joseph felt cold. Ah, so you tried to kill him. Richard leaned in close. His voice dropped. I tried to save the company, he whispered. Joseph shook his head. You're lying. Richard straightened. Listen carefully, he said. This ends today. You will say you panicked. You will say you imagined things. And you will walk out of this building safely. And if I don't? Joseph asked. Richard's smile vanished. Then your father's name will be dragged through the mud, Richard said. We will say he stole, lied, failed for a reason. Joseph's chest hurt. Richard stepped back. Think wisely. He opened the door. As Richard left, Joseph sank back into the chair, breathing hard. Moments later, Donald entered. The CEO is alive, Donald said. Barely. Doctors say if help came 5 minutes later, he would have died. Joseph closed his eyes. Saved, but not safe. Donald hesitated. There's more, he added. Joseph looked up. The board has ordered an internal review, Donald said. And until it's done, you're being offered a temporary position. Joseph frowned. A job? Donald nodded. Assistant analyst, under probation. Joseph's heart raced. A door opening. Or another trap. Donald added quietly, Your first assignment starts tomorrow. Joseph asked, Where? Donald looked uncomfortable. In Richard's department. Joseph felt the room spin. Joseph barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the syringe. The shaking body, Benita's calm face, Richard's smile that felt like a knife. Morning came too fast. By 6:30 a.m., Joseph was already on a bus heading toward Victoria Island. The city was waking up, street sellers arranging goods, car horns shouting, had the lagoon catching the early light. Lagos looked normal. Joseph didn't feel normal. He stood in front of the Fudder Group Holdings building again, the glass tower shining like nothing had happened inside it. Inside, everything moved like clockwork. People smiled, phones rang, coffee machines hissed. No one talked about the CEO. No one talked about poison. Joseph was escorted to the 21st floor, Richard's floor. As the elevator doors opened, Richard was already standing there, like he had been waiting. Good morning, Joseph, Richard said pleasantly. Right on time. Joseph forced a nod. Richard walked him into a smaller office near the corner. No name on the door. This will be your workspace, Richard said. Temporary. Joseph looked around. One desk, one chair, one computer. Your job is simple, Richard continued. You'll review internal project files, nothing sensitive. Joseph sat slowly. As Richard turned to leave, he stopped. One more thing, Richard said. Benita has been placed on medical leave. Stress-related. Joseph's jaw tightened. Stress, he repeated. Richard smiled. Terrible thing. The door closed. Joseph logged into the computer. Within minutes, he realized something was wrong. Files were missing. Numbers didn't add up. Budgets shifted. Transfers routed through strange accounts. Joseph's heart beat faster. This wasn't busy work. This was a test. Or a setup. Around midday, a woman approached his desk. She looked nervous. Early 30s. Smart eyes. I'm Ada, she whispered. Compliance. Joseph straightened. Okay. She leaned closer. I know what you did yesterday. Joseph froze. You saved the CEO, Ada said. And now they're watching you. Joseph lowered his voice. Who is they? Ada didn't answer directly. Richard thinks you're weak, she said. that you'll be grateful, that you'll stay quiet. Joseph thought of his mother, the rent due, the empty fridge. Ada slid a flash drive onto his desk. "If you value your life," she said softly, "don't plug that in here." Joseph looked at it. "What is it?" "Proof," Ada replied, "but proof is dangerous." Before Joseph could ask more, Ada walked away. Minutes later, Joseph's phone buzzed. "Unknown number. Check the folder marked Legacy." Joseph hesitated, then he opened the folder. Inside were old files. Very old. Scanned documents, interviews, rejected applications. One name appeared again and again, Samuel Adebayo. Joseph's hands shook. His father's CV, stamped rejected. Attached notes, too old-fashioned. Does not fit executive culture. Financial background questionable. Joseph's chest burned, then another document opened. An internal memo. From Richard. Dated years ago. Ensure Adebayo never enters this organization. He asks too many questions. Joseph leaned back, dizzy. His father hadn't just been rejected. He had been silenced. A sudden shadow fell across Joseph's desk. Richard stood there. "Find what you were looking for?" Richard asked. Joseph minimized the screen fast. "Just files." Richard nodded. "Good." Then his tone changed. "The CEO woke up this morning," Richard said. "He can't speak yet, but he remembers a young man in the room." Joseph's heart jumped. Richard leaned closer. "Do you know what memory does to people, Joseph?" Joseph shook his head. "It makes them dangerous," Richard said. "Unpredictable." He straightened. "The board wants to reward loyalty," Richard continued. "There's a promotion path here, fast." Joseph said nothing. Richard smiled. "But loyalty has a price." He placed a sealed envelope on the desk. Joseph stared at it. "What's that?" he asked. Richard's voice was calm. "A termination letter." Joseph frowned. "For who?" Richard's eyes met his. "Your mother," Richard said, "from her job." Joseph's breath left his body. "You wouldn't," Joseph whispered. Richard tilted his head. "I already did." The office felt like it was shrinking. Joseph's phone buzzed again. "Mum, they just told me not to come back. What is happening?" Joseph's hands trembled. Richard stepped back. "Choose wisely," he said. "Be grateful, or be brave." Then he walked away. Joseph stared at the screen, the flash drive in his drawer, his father's name glowing in his mind. And for the first time, Joseph understood the truth. This job was never about work, it was about control. Joseph sat frozen, his mother's message burning in his hand. Richard had crossed a line he could never uncross, and Joseph knew his next move wouldn't just decide his career, it would decide who survived what was coming next. Joseph did not reply to his mother's message right away. He couldn't. If he typed one wrong word, his hands would shake too much. If he called her, his voice would break, and if his voice broke, he might do something foolish. So he sat there, breathing, counting. 1, 2, 3. Around him the office kept moving. People laughed, printers hummed, someone argued about lunch plans. The world didn't stop just because his life was cracking open. Joseph slowly opened his desk drawer. The flash drive stared back at him, small, ordinary, dangerous. He slid it into his pocket, then he stood up. Joseph walked down the hallway toward the executive wing. Each step felt heavy, like the floor was trying to pull him back. He passed framed photos of company milestones, awards, smiling faces. All lies, he thought. At the end of the hall, Donald stood outside a guarded room. "The CEO?" Joseph asked. Donald studied him. "You're not cleared." Joseph leaned closer. "He remembers me. You said it yourself." Donald hesitated. Inside the room, machines beeped softly. Through the glass, Joseph could see Joseph's father lying in the hospital bed, pale but alive. Tubes, wires, a fragile man who once looked untouchable. Donald exhaled. 5 minutes." Inside, the room smelled like medicine and quiet fear. Joseph stepped closer to the bed. The CEO's eyes opened slowly. They focused, then recognition. "You," the CEO whispered, his voice weak but clear enough. The boy. Joseph nodded. Sir. The CEO swallowed. You saved me. Joseph didn't smile. They tried to kill you, Joseph said softly. The CEO's eyes shifted. Pain flickered across his face, not physical pain, something deeper. I know, the CEO whispered. Benita. And Richard, Joseph added. The CEO closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were sharp. He always wanted the throne, the CEO said, but wanting isn't enough. Joseph pulled the flash drive from his pocket. My father worked for the truth, Joseph said. You rejected him. Or maybe he scared the wrong people. The CEO stared at the flash drive. Your father asked questions, he said slowly. About money, about ethics. Richard didn't like that. Joseph's chest tightened. So you let it happen. The CEO looked away. Silence filled the room. Then Joseph said the hardest thing he had ever said. They fired my mother today. The CEO's head snapped back toward him. What? Richard did it, Joseph said, to control me. The CEO's hands trembled as he clenched them. That man has gone too far. Footsteps approached outside, fast. Donald's voice rose. Sir, you need to rest. The door opened. Richard walked in, calm, confident, smiling. I see you're awake, Richard said. That's good news. His eyes flicked to Joseph. Ah, Richard added, our hero. Joseph didn't move. Neither did the CEO. Richard continued, the board is waiting. Decisions must be made. The CEO looked at Richard for a long moment. Then he said quietly, You underestimated one thing. Richard raised an eyebrow. What's that? The CEO nodded toward Joseph. Him. Richard laughed once. He's a boy. Joseph stepped forward. A boy you tried to silence, Joseph said, like my father. Richard's smile faded. Joseph held up the flash drive. This contains proof, Joseph said. Accounts, transfers, orders, messages, including the one you sent Benita. The room went deadly quiet. Richard's eyes hardened. You wouldn't dare. Joseph met his gaze. I already have. Richard turned to the CEO. If you let this go public, the company burns. The CEO replied calmly, It already is. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Richard turned sharply toward the window. Too late. As security poured into the room. Benita was escorted in, handcuffed, her face pale and empty. Richard's voice dropped. You think this ends me? He looked at Joseph one last time. You've just started a war you don't understand. Richard was led away. The room fell silent again. The CEO looked at Joseph. You changed the story today. Joseph shook his head. No, sir. I just opened the right door this time. The CEO closed his eyes, exhausted. Go home, he said. This isn't over. Joseph nodded. As Joseph walked out of the building, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. You exposed one head. Others are watching. Are you ready for what comes next? Joseph stopped walking. Traffic roared. Lagos breathed around him. He stared at the message. Then another buzz. Mum. They called. They said there was a mistake. I still have my job. Joseph smiled, but only for a second. Because he knew something now. This story was bigger than one company, bigger than one CEO, bigger than one wrong door, and whatever was coming next, it was coming for him. Thank you for watching. What's your view about this story? Which city are you watching from? Kindly let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories.